I'll let you know when it's actually out there.
Okay. And we won't start our meeting till a little after 6 to make sure we get a, let's see, 1, 2, we have a quorum now, so we can officially start at 6 o'clock. And then if people are late, we can just come on in and join us.
All right, David, we are live.
All right, very good. We'll just give it a few more minutes before we begin our B City meeting here. Got a couple minutes till 6. And I did put some documents in the meeting folder for your committee members. You can see I put our agenda for tonight, which I'll put up on the slide here in a little bit. But I put some of our documents that you kind of refer to the meeting. I put our original resolution that the town adopted for B City. I put our Mayor Monarch's Pledge in there, and some of the sustainabilities project and initiatives they're working on, because Val's going to shortly give us an update about what the Sustainability Office in town is working on. So we'll give it another minute or two. I'm expecting a couple more staff. Kendall Taylor, who works in operations, there she is. So yeah, hi, Kendall. And Kim did say she was joining us just late, and there's Guy. Hi, Guy. Welcome. So I got 6 o'clock, so we'll call to order the February 17th meeting of the B City Committee. Thank you all for joining us, and ready for tonight's ice storm. Hopefully no one's adversely affected, but we did get notice that the town is on a 2-hour delay tomorrow morning. But so I might just work at home anyway that day. So we'll see. But thank you guys for joining us. We do have a couple staff in addition to myself tonight. We have Trevor Johnson. We have Kendall, who's ever in operations, and we have Val, who's in our sustainability office. And I'm going to share my screen. Hopefully this will all work. And we'll just throw up our agenda for tonight. We're going to talk about we don't have public comment because the public can watch this on YouTube channel, but they can't interact with us live. So if anybody's watching that, my email, I'm David Wood. I work here at the Howley Cultural Arts Center. I'm the staff liaison, one of the staff liaisons to the B City Committee. If you want to reach out to me, to inquire about future meetings, ideas for the B City Committee, you can reach me at david.wood@apexnc.org. And we'd love to have you involved with our future meetings, or send me an email question and I'll read it and make sure we address that at our next meeting. But our first order of business we're going to talk about is the Pollinator Demonstration Garden, which we have some exciting news. It's definitely underway, so that's a great thing. And then we're going to move on to the Mayor's Monarch Pledge renewal. If you remember, we did that in October, but it's required by the National Wildlife Federation, who administers that we do that annually. So it's already time to renew that pledge, and we'll talk about some of those tasks that we agreed to do as a town and a committee. And then we'll also talk about a potential Pollinator Week event, and wrap it up with anything that you might want to ask. So before I kind of jump into that, I'm going to hit escape. Just take my screen off of share for a moment here. It's the public comment. We don't have public, but we do have Val. So I want her to kind of have a chance to give us updates about what's going on with the sustainability program and initiatives that you guys are working on for our education, and how we can help you kind of meet those goals. So Val, take it away.
Hi, everyone. For those who may not know me, I am Val. I am the lead for North Carolina fellow here for the town of Apex, supporting our sustainability program. And a few quick updates about what the team has been doing recently. We are currently working on creating the greenhouse gas inventory for the town, so that we have, that baseline, so that we can have actual numbers to meet this amazing and ambitious 2050 clean energy goal that the council put out in a resolution. We are also working on a sustainability webpage, having that up and running on the town website. So if anyone has suggestions on things they'd like to see, or just ideas for any community outreach, any suggestions are welcome. We're currently working on that now. In terms of planning and like what our long-term goal is for the program, we are currently working on an initiatives list that we're sharing with, council and the appropriate town staff, and that'll influence what we do in the short term and in the long term, as well as serve as like a guideline for the sustainability, for the APEX Sustainability Action Plan, or ASAP, as the program coordinator Megan likes to call it. We've done a lot of research and collaboration with different work groups and different networks, including research on grant funding that could potentially help the community garden that we have now, or just looking at different avenues for that. And we recently applied for the Volkswagen grant for putting electric vehicle charging stations around town. So that's a little bit of what we're doing. It's a lot more than that, but just tip of the iceberg stuff that I thought would be helpful for you guys to know. If anyone has questions, feel free to ask me. But aside from that, that is a little nutshell of what we've been doing recently.
Great, thank you, Val. Questions for Val?
I had just one question, because in the last meeting, I remember, Val, there was a lot of discussion about the community garden and what may happen to that. Are there any updates, like how long that will remain there, or any changes?
There aren't any updates so far in terms of like what the future is, because it's like not town property or anything, so it's not up to the town or up to us to decide. We've just been researching what the different paths we can take are with the community garden, depending on what all the stakeholders like want, just balancing a lot of different priorities and important things, and people involved. So the short answer is no, there are not updates on that yet, but we are working diligently to figure out what the best solution is for the town and for everyone involved.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, I know the only update I've heard that the town and the manager's office is aware of that need and that opportunity that exists, and I'm sure the council will be addressing that maybe at some point if they haven't already kind of began conversations about that piece of property. And it would be great if the town could buy it. I know it would be cost a little bit, but it'd be great if we could kind of keep it as a community garden, and add some pollinator education and pieces to that as well. It'd be awesome. So I'm sure everybody here would love to see that as well. But
yeah, there are definitely a lot of conversations around it, and then as soon as Megan and I have any sort of update, we'll definitely let B City committee know.
Great, awesome, thank you. Okay, well, yeah, go ahead.
Sorry, I had a question on the sustainability website. If you could give more details on what kind of information you're looking to put on there. Is the goal for it to be more about initiatives the town is taking, or more for residents to take initiatives of their own?
It's a little bit of both. So far, the focal point, so the main page, as of right now, the draft at least, is focusing on like town plans and town initiatives and ways that the town is trying to achieve this resolution, this 2050 clean energy resolution that the council passed. But I am trying to add a page of somewhere where people can get more involved, so education part of it and an involvement part of it, because there are different ways to get involved and there's different things that people can bring sustainability into their homes. But the highlight, I guess, or the main part of it will be the town kind of just trying to lead by example, and then hopefully if people are interested in doing that, they can also see the other page that is linked to it of here's what you can do when it comes to waste management, or water or energy efficiency, or just, renewable energy like solar, like how we, just solar panels and how that is being taken up by the town. So does that answer your question, or do you have any suggestions?
No, that does answer my question. I was just thinking, I know from my personal experience, and people in my neighborhood often think I'm nuts because I don't bag my recyclables and things. That's always great outreach for residents. And I don't know, what the percentage of, for the town and our residents, how I guess dirty our stream is. And I know that our current website does have some information on it, but that was something that had just popped in my mind. And then obviously, as coming from the Bee City Committee, it would be great for us to also be able to at least link to, some of the other efforts that we're working on as far as like native pollinators and things like that go, because that's easy. Those are easy things for residents to be able to do in their own yard. But I look forward to seeing what you guys put together.
Yeah, and there's definitely in one of the drafts, there's definitely like ways that I've already thought of how to link what other, citizen committees are already doing, because what you guys are doing is what's influencing, town policy and what we're doing. So we work for you guys. We're working to try to make Apex better because of what you guys have to say. So again, more suggestions on the website are always welcome, and I'll definitely keep that in mind as I move forward with that. So thanks for that.
Yeah, thanks, Val. A lot of the initiatives that we first drew up are what the Bee City is all about, and what we want to do. It really ties in. If you look at the initiatives that the Sustainability Office wants to do, there's many overlaps. And like Val was saying, we have the Tree City Committee, we have the Environmental Advisory Board. So those are two other citizen groups within the town that are all doing very similar work and kind of all tie into the big picture of sustainability and where the town wants to do what the council wants. So we're real thankful for what you guys are doing and helping us get there. So we can't do it without our citizens, obviously. So thank you, Val. So we're going to move on to old business, which is the Pollinator Garden. So I'm going to go back and share my screen again and bring up the PowerPoint here. Okay, so talking about the Bee City resolution, one of the things that I'm sure you remember from over a year ago in that resolution was to create pollinator habitat on public and private land. So we're beginning the first steps of doing that, one of our resolutions. So good for you guys. So one box checked. So habitat. So that what we want to do, and we've talked about this, over our meetings over this year, but we finally got a site. And it's at the Apex Nature Park. A couple of you guys were with us a few weeks ago, and we kind of looked at the site. And it's at the Nature Park. It's in front of the operations building there, which is adjacent to the soccer fields. And there's a shelter and some playgrounds and tennis courts in the nearby vicinity as well. But it's a perfect spot because, for one thing, it's accessible to staff and parking and the public, and it's right there where kids are playing soccer. So the spillover and what's this thing over there, and kind of hopefully we'll have the public viewing it. And the idea is this is sort of a demonstration garden. It's similar in size. It's 90 by 30 feet. So it's a lot of sizes of people's backyards in Apex. So hopefully it'll give them some ideas of what they can do in their own yards. Is what I like to see happen as one of these parts of the Pollinator Garden while we're doing that. So the timeline to make that happen, well, right now, and Kendall's with us from operations, so she can time in too whenever, but what she's been working on and her staff is to remove the existing plants and trees and mulch that are on site, at least the non-native ones. There are a few that we're going to keep, and there's some willow trees that we're probably going to need to keep. We can trim them back a little bit if they're creating too much shade, but so she successfully started that process. I think everything is removed now that's going to be removed, and it was relocated, not destroyed. So a lot of that was all relocated to Apex Community Park, I believe. So that's great. So we're step one down. We kind of beat the majority of the rain, although it's been a very wet winter, but they got it done just before this last week of bout of rain that we've had. So that a little less mud on their behalf. So right now, what we're doing is we're starting to look at, and I'll show you a picture of it here in a second, but there's a trellis in the back of that lot. It's kind of an ugly fence right now, so we can figure ways to beautify that and what kind of materials we want to use. We've talked about a path so that the public can kind of get up into that space and look at the plants a little closer, look at the pollinators a little closer to make them be part of the garden. So what kind of path are we going to have? What kind of materials are going to use? We're making those decisions. And then we're going to really jump into the planning stage of the, what plants are we going to use and what kind of design? Where are we going to get the plants from? We want to use all natives. We want to have pollinator plants. So we'll talk about that in a little bit. Kendall's also in the past, and a lot of different projects that she's worked on throughout our park, she's used citizen volunteers. So she has good contacts with scout groups, etc. So she's beginning to reach out for those community groups to kind of help with this project, because we don't want to do it all ourselves, and we want the public involved with this and take ownership of this space. And so we want to involve them, and we'll involve you guys and have an opportunity to have a work day and such. So we'll get a shovel in all our hands at one point, and then we'll really start that install sometime in mid-April, probably. That's our average last frost, and all these plants that we'll get will be plugs. They're, right now, places that are growing them by seeds. We won't be able to get these materials until probably April, May in some of the cases. So we'll kind of start that install of those plants April, May, and then I'd love to have it. It's not going to look like a complete pollinator garden in June, but we'd like to have some sort of grand opening event that kind of ties in with Pollinator Week. It may or not be, in person, depending on the safety of that and where COVID is at that time. But we'll do some sort of event to have a grand opening, virtual or in person, during Pollinator Week. So, Kendall, anything to add on that timeline? How are we looking so far? Are we keeping to it?
Yeah, we are. Like you mentioned, we got a lot of the plants out last week. We got a new piece of equipment we got to use for the first time, so that was exciting. We did relocate all the plants, like you said, to Apex Community Park. You can go look at them. They're on field 3, some of the butterfly bushes. We thought about keeping them, but I found out butterfly bushes, the ones we had, were not native to North Carolina, but they will be relocated there. That went really well, and like you mentioned, I'm kind of gathering volunteers now. I've got one group, the Apex Plant Exchange. They reached out and they're interested in doing some work days. We started our new Adopt a Park program mid last year, and the group Kappa, Citizens Assisting Police, they're gonna do some work with us. And like you said, some scouts. So kind of starting to coordinate that and what they want to be involved in. And yeah, just finalizing some little details of what kind of material we want to use. Little things here and there. We're always open to suggestions. If you have any great ideas on things, or we're completely open to things. So feel free you can reach us through email or shout out ideas here, and jot down notes. Definitely want to have people involved. And as you can see from that picture, behind that piece of equipment, there's a window, and that is my office. So I get to look out and I get to see it every day. So I want to take a lot of pride in it, be really involved.
So it's really Kendall's Pollinator Garden. We're just making her little office view very pretty.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's one corner of the site. So you can see that fence that we're talking about, that we like to kind of take that, maybe put something in front of it, or we could even put a wood, a trellis for plants to use that for vines and stuff. We could put wood, and then we could have the public art committee. We can involve them, and maybe we can do a mural out there, pollinator mural, the kind of the backdrop. So there's, if anybody has any good creative suggestions on what we should do with that fence line, again, it's about 90 feet we're talking about. So, but you can see those are some of the plants that were removed. And those are the I believe those are the willow trees without leaves on them, obviously, in the back there. And I think there's 3 of them, Kendall, 3 or 4.
There's 2 willows that stayed. There was some pin oak, sorry. We got moved to nature or community park, and then a lot of those holly bushes we got moved as well in the grass. So they're all being utilized in other places, but.
And that's a view from what you just saw, kind of looking towards the other direction along to the end of that fence. And that's what it looks like now. And then Kendall's put a wonderful little sign saying, "Pardon our mess" there. So future pollinator garden. So the soil's pretty good out there. Looks nice, and it's not clay like my yard. So I'm sure it has some clay mix in there, but it's pretty loomy and some good topsoil in there as well. So we shouldn't have to put too much new topsoil in there. I think Kendall's going to bring some in just to kind of make it a more of elevate, kind of even surface here and there. But for the most part, we won't have to have too much topsoil added to the side. Is that correct?
That's right. And we actually, so if you're familiar, Salem Pond, we got a lot of dirt from there because they're taking up the existing soccer field and putting a turf field. So we're relocating some of that dirt to our location. So moving a lot of resources, but it's within the town, which is awesome. So we don't have to go buy a bunch of things and keeping it local, which is awesome. So we will be using that.
And we talked about, mulching and stuff, and we'll definitely mulch because we want to keep our, weed suppression down as much as possible. But what kind of mulch we'll use and what kind of surface for the path is kind of in discussions. The town does have, this is for the general public too, because I bring my pickup truck probably once a week and go to the front of Public Works. They have a nice little pile of free mulch that you see the trucks driving around Apex picking up the people's curbside wood. They mulch it in their vehicles and they kind of dump it out for the public to use. So we could use some of that to kind of show what you could do in your own yard with free mulch that comes from the town and kind of be part of that renewable resource idea as well. So any ideas about that, and especially about the path servicing, let us know. And I did contact Mellow Marsh. They're out in Siler City in Chatham County. They grow all different native plants of North Carolina, and they have quite a large selection of pollinator plants. And if you go to their website, you just do a Google search for Mellow Marsh, and you'll pull it up, and they'll have a pollinator section, and they're in alphabetical order by Latin names, but there are 70 different pollinator plants that they will have available this season. They expect to. They grow it pretty much 90% of that from seed themselves. So that's just one place we could source some of this plant material. It's a good one. I've had some stuff there in my own yard, and I've been real successful with it. So, but there's other places out there, and if you know of other places, especially if you can do it, if there's any place in Apex, I'd love to find an Apex source and keep it as local as possible. Be great. But they do have, about 70 plants that should be available April, May, and they're growing from seed now, and they're in greenhouses, et cetera. So get on there and take a list, long look at all those different kinds of plants. And I'm not a designer, Taylor's, we're not landscape designers. So if any of you are more expert in that area, we'd love to get your input too. Combinations of plants that will work well color-wise. We want plants that will be blooming from spring into fall, because we want to, a lot of things are just, if you go to the big box stores, you might get something that's there, everything's blooming right then and there. That's how they sell it. So you get all these spring blooming plants, but it's really important, especially for pollinators, to sustain that nectar, that food source throughout the year. So we want things that are blooming in early summer, midsummer, late summer, fall. And even things like grasses, you can have native grasses that look really cool when they go to seeds. And in the wintertime, pollinator gardens can have their own kind of beauty. So, and that's sort of a vision I like to see things that are going to be blooming throughout the year, that go well together, color-wise, size-wise. And so even though this is going to be just phase one of the garden, it's going to be an ongoing, we'll start this spring, but every year we'll be fixing and adding to it, and some things will work, some things won't. So it's kind of our experimental pollinator garden, the educational garden. So, but if you have any ideas of where we can locally source any of these pollinator plants, that would be great. We could even do some things from seed ourselves, so that's not an impossibility as well. if we can't get the plant itself.
So David, is there an opportunity to work with, I think it's the town's, I think it's the landscape committee? Is that, I forget. I have a friend, former neighbor, who's on another committee that has worked with some of the parks. Like they were on the committee that helped come up with some of the landscape design around the skate park that was done recently. And I'm just wondering if there's an opportunity to work with some of those folks on this, like a joining of two committees to help with some ideas on how to lay stuff out and everything.
Sure. I'll check into that, and that it would be also good, you know, and I'm sure Val would say that as well for on the sustainability side of things, that you know, we need to be working with these committees and making sure that they also know what we want to do. We want to try to encourage using native plants and pollinator plants in these landscaping places throughout the town. I'm part of the public art committee, for example, and we're doing an install of 10 different sculpture sites throughout downtown and the town campus, and was just kind of, we're walking and evaluating the sites, and it was like the little railroad crossing. If you've ever seen it, it goes from town, the town campus. It kind of shortcuts through the backside of Duncan Commons to go downtown, but it crosses the railroad tracks there. It's not a highly used little path, but there was a little manicured section that someone's obviously maintaining. And I was like asking, you know, if anybody knew who did that, and it was the town. It was a town property, and I guess the landscaping company did that. And but you know, they had some just little boxwoods and things like that. And I was like, this is a perfect kind of a place that we could do these little mini pocket pollinator native plant gardens instead of some of these more traditional kind of plants that landscapers typically use, and Bradford pears and different things that, you know, that we kind of see too much of, in my opinion, throughout the town. But so, yeah, I'll look into that. And that's something I wanted to talk more with the Sustainability Office, how we can encourage the use of kind of native plants, not just part of what we're doing here in our garden, but town-wide for sure, in our principles and how we're in what we do. So yes, I'll look into that for sure.
Hey, David.
Jennifer.
Yep, go ahead. Sorry.
Oh, this is Trevor. I work real close with the guy that does the Tree City, and we're looking to, the town has allotted right now, I think it's maybe $75,000 is what they're trying to get for trees, and we're looking for places to plant them. That's the whole problem with Tree City, is there's nowhere to plant them. So the town has already allotted that money. So if we want to plant some trees over there, small trees or big trees, it doesn't matter. The money's there. If you want to plant a few or a bunch, it doesn't matter. But we're looking places to plant. So his name is Mark Seibert. He's the head of the Tree City, and I work with him really close in the planning department. So if you want any trees, we can get them.
Perfect. And even yeah, that's awesome. Well, thank you for sharing that, Trevor, and we'll look into that. And we probably definitely incorporate a tree or two out there at this pollinator garden site too. So, and maybe even at when we have like the event, the grand opening is part of Pollinator Week. I don't know. I'm sure Tree City's in the discussions of these things. Maybe we could have, you know, little saplings that are available to the public to pick up, you know, one per, you know, to kind of replace some of those non-native trees that, you know, the landscapers put in their front yard. So that would be awesome.
I think the council's wanting to do a similar program to what Carrie's doing, and Carrie does a lot of the sapling giveaways. So I'm sure we're on that track to head that way probably.
Perfect. Great. Good to hear.
Oh, go ahead, Kendall.
No, go ahead. No, go.
Yeah, go ahead.
I was just gonna, so it sounds like all of the plants we still have to kind of select. And so we haven't, there's no plan to purchase anything yet. Is that right?
There's no, well, we will be purchasing, but
right. But there's not any like a whole non-certain plants already or anything.
Correct.
Okay. So the North Carolina Botanical Garden also has a very large selection of native plants. We could reach out to them. I'm familiar with their horticulturist there and could reach out. I do some of this at work also, and so I have been trying to develop a spreadsheet for my use at work to help me with the selection of native pollinators, with, you know, height of the plants, when they bloom, the colors that they bloom. I'm not by any means a landscape architect, but I would love to help with some of those selections. And then I like the idea of the trellis along the fence line, because we have a ton of really beautiful native vines. And I'm sure we could put like at least 4 or 5 different types of species of vine up along that area, and specifically, I think it'd be really great for us to show off native honeysuckle and maybe some passiflora, because that actually grows an edible fruit, which is pretty good. So.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Kate. Well, definitely I'll be contacting you, getting your input and your help and ideas for sure. Yes. And yeah, because we're not landscape architects, but that's okay. We'll figure it all out together. And I got a couple, good resources, and we'll have a good plan. So we'll be in touch real quick with that, because that's kind of our next steps, basically, that design phase, so that we know what we need to be looking for. Perfect.
Yeah, definitely.
And I did a measurement. I said it's 90 by 30, and that comes out to 5,700 square feet of area that we can use for planting. And that Mellow Marsh had like a little plant guide, depending on how you do your plantings. And this is not how we would do it, but just kind of give a rough idea of how many different kind of plugs you could put in there. You're talking, upwards of 5,000 plus little plants you could put in that space. So quite a lot. And we may not be doing that much. And a lot of this is, we don't have a large budget to work with yet, but maybe in the future we'll get something like Tree City has. But ours is much smaller than their budget. But yeah, so that just kind of eye-opening about if you planted them every 12 inches, that's how many plants you could squeeze in that kind of space. But obviously we'll have a path in there, and that'll take away some of that. And we have a couple of the trees that we are going to leave in place as well. So that number will come down a little bit, but just to get an idea of the kind of quantity we're talking about. And we don't have to have it all planted out year one. We can kind of do this in phases and add to it seasonally and every year as we see fit. And then one day, this is just like this is the Pollinator Garden that's at Chatham Mills out in near Pittsburgh, that Debbie Ruse does. And she does some great videos if you want some inspiration of how she does her designs and colors, and she's doing that same thing where things bloom year round. And she does a monthly video tour. And this is like, you can see June from last year on there, and I kind of put the addresses at the top of the screen there. But kind of give us some inspiration of what one day our little place could look like, and different little islands. I mean, this is just a parking area. We have a lot of those in Apex, where we have these little islands that just, there's a pine tree in the middle of it or something that doesn't look so great. This is what a lot of our areas could look like in Apex, in our public area. So this is just step one, this for gardens. I see later down the road that we're starting to look at these little mini pockets that we can kind of help get in place throughout the town, on town properties, and then give inspiration for people in their own yards. So if you want some pretty pictures on this rainy days we're having, go to those Chatham Mills sites, growing.smallfarms.ces.ncsu.edu, and you'll see all sorts of good ideas to kind of help guide us as well. All right, is there anything on the Pollinator Garden before we move on to new business? Any other comments?
I see a couple of questions in the chat.
Oh, okay. Let me stop sharing my screen here for a second.
Jennifer asks, can we put up some signage for any nurseries that may donate plants? I know where I work at in the operations building, we have a sign shop, and we've designed, and we can create, and we do vinyl signs. We can print them, we cut them, we apply them in-house. So anyone that donates time or plants or anything, we've talked about, like, if we want to do plaques or signs, and that's another thing. We can share input about how we want that to look. But yes, we do want to display names, and we want people to really be involved. So that will be a big aspect of it. And it looks like Michael asked, how integrated are the extension agent with the town? I know Debbie Roos, which David just mentioned, from Chatham County. And it looks like he has a work day in the next few months, and she normally has a plethora of extra plants.
Okay, well, I know Debbie too, so maybe yeah, Michael, that's a good suggestion. Maybe I'll get up with her and see if she wants to donate any plants to the town of Apex. I know the Apex has helped them out with their on our IT side of things. I think we've collaborated because they've had issues out in Chatham County with the cyber attack. So we can all help each other in any way. So even though she's outside and she's Chatham County, we're Wake County, I'm sure she'd be willing to give us, if nothing else, advice and what, where she gets plants and good ideas. And then like Caitlin said, with the National Carolina Botanical Society, that's a perfect source. We do have like this sign here. This, the Xerxes Society puts out pollinator habitat signs, and we can do, we put this kind of sign out at the garden. But I imagine we'll have other educational signs, because I want to be able to tell the public what are they seeing. We might even have like a little brochure rack that kind of says these are the kind of plants, these are the names, and kind of to give more education, or even like a kids activity that you could do. Can you identify these type of pollinators in the garden? So there's education is going to be a big part of this. I mean, it's not just to look at. We want them to be able to learn what's going on out of that garden and what kind of plants and what kind of pollinators are benefiting from those plants. So signage will be big, and later I'm going to talk about some signage in a slide here. So that's a perfect segue to that. So let's go back to anything else before I move on to the Monarch Pledge on the garden. And I think we're going to have a meeting. I think we're kind of scheduled to meet every other month, but due to the nature of this is going to really happen in a scrunched up time frame. So like for us, our next meeting to be March 17th. So that'll be a month from now. And we'll kind of give updates of that garden. It'll be a specific meeting to kind of give updates of where the status of that garden and where we're moving along with. So, but I'll remind you at the end of the meeting when that next meeting is. So back to the sharing my screen. The Monarch Pledge. So if you remember, the mayor asked us to kind of take on a pledge, and we kind of developed this, in conjunction with the National Wildlife Federation. They have a program called the Mayor's Monarch Challenge, where this ties in perfectly what we do as a bee city. We're not just about bees, we're really about pollinators in general. Monarch being a pollinator and really relies on milkweed as their source of nectar and for laying eggs and their whole life cycle, et cetera. So there was a whole set of action items that we agreed to do. They kind of tie in closely to what we want to do in our Bee City Committee initiatives, tie in perfectly Sustainability's Office initiatives. So, but the requirement is to renew that pledge every year. So that's fine. And so we're going to send that to the mayor. And I chose there's 21 action items. We have to do at least 3. So we'll do 3. We'll probably do many more than that. But I want to show you the 3 that are easy to do right off from the starts. And that first one is to plant a monarch-friendly demonstration garden. So box 1, we're working on it. We're checking that. It's going to be monarch-friendly for sure. We will definitely have milkweed as part of this garden most certainly. Another initiative, many of you talked about this, and this is something I want to see us kind of give some effort to this year, is really create that neighborhood challenge, kind of people's yards, to kind of give them recognition for making a pollinator-friendly yard. And so I want us to kind of work on that this year. What do we want that recognition program to look like? What kind of signage maybe can we use to kind of award them, to show, recognize them for their efforts? So give that some thought. We'll talk more in detail throughout the year, but I'd like to kind of form a subcommittee that you guys can work outside of our monthly meetings, and you can kind of come up with some ideas and bring it back to the group at our next meetings or meetings throughout the year. So if you're interested in kind of heading up that subcommittee, that's recognition program, just send me an email and we'll kind of create that subcommittee. I'd like to create a subcommittee for that, and maybe a subcommittee for the Pollinator Week educational event, the kind of festival. So the 2 kind of subcommittees and that you guys can work on outside this. And the last one is that, like I said, host a Monarch Butterfly Festival. So we'll have a Pollinator Festival. We'll definitely include Monarch. So it might be virtual, and they completely understand that these events are not necessarily going to be live, and they don't want us to do anything that's not safe. So they have alternatives. You can see alternatives, and that's alternative because of the COVID situation. So for any of these tasks, there are alternative tasks to accomplish that are designed with that in mind. So what do you think? Those look like a good 3 action items that you think we can easily sign off on this year?
I think so. I know there are some neighborhoods that have their, different residents have different monarch habitats. I know my old neighborhood, there were several people who created habitat. So I think that's something that you could probably see around, and maybe in Caitlin's neighborhood might have something similar as well. So I think that's definitely doable. And then the hosting of a butterfly festival. Hopefully we'll all be back in person at some point, but there's certainly ways to do something like a Facebook Live, maybe having a local expert who can do a Facebook Live demonstration or something.
Certainly. I did include, if you want to look at the entire 21 tasks that we can choose from, that's on, it's in the Teams kind of items where I uploaded some different items. You can kind of look at that if you haven't already done so. We're also probably going to create like a OneDrive that we can access outside of Microsoft Teams. I think OneDrive is a lot easier, and we can kind of share documents and work from that. So the IT department is going to help me set that up tomorrow, actually, and I'll share that information with you and how to access that so we can kind of collaborate on some of these projects in between meetings as well. So, but some of those other items, there's a few more that we could probably easily do as well. And we might, and it's okay. We do more than the 3. If you do, I think up to 8, you become a different level of the Monarch Pledge challenge, and so these are some ones that probably sustainability already has, and is the initiatives under their department. So, again, we're talking about mowing techniques and spraying and pesticide applications, and changing landscape ordinances to support pest management, best practices, et cetera. So these are in mowing, how we mow fields, and maybe make low mowing or high mowing, so that we can kind of let things go to seed for wildlife to benefit from it. So it's full of great ideas and great initiatives. So just because we maybe do these 3 doesn't mean that we can't do many, many more. But if you are guys in agreement with maybe at least starting with these 3, so we can at least get these done, would someone make a motion to kind of do that, since I can't do that as staff, but you guys can?
I will motion, David. These 3 look easy to accomplish.
Great. And a second?
Mike Aroni seconds.
Wonderful. All in favor? Aye?
Aye.
Aye.
Awesome. Appreciate it.
Aye.
Okay.
Oh, there. It took a while to get off mute.
Good. No worries. All right. And like I said, the Pollinator Week, that brings us into our last item on the agenda is the Pollinator Week. That is June 21 through June 27th of this year. And the Saturdays would be June 26th if we want to shoot towards that kind of a Saturday event, whether in person or virtual. Don't know yet, but we can start working on it. This is like something I said, maybe we could have a subcommittee, 1 or 2 people, if you want to email me or interest in kind of helping pull that off. We can start working towards that and have an update at our next meeting as well. And these are just images that, something we could, we could have like, a bee demonstration. We could, those hives where you can kind of look in it. We could have different partners. We could have sustainability there. We could have the Tree City. We could have the Environmental Advisory Board and have little booths, and Public Works could be out there and show how, how to, what they do and different things, not putting grease down your drain. So things that are just environmental friendly and period. So that's kind of how, like I could envision this. We have some educational booths. We have some activities for kids. We kind of have the garden. We can kind of show off. Again, depends on whether we can be in person or not. But if we can't, we can do a virtual event. We can do the Facebook Live event like you're saying. So just start getting the wheels turning on that idea, and we can address that at our next meeting. But any thoughts about kind of that an event like that? Okay. Well, just send to me as you go ahead. Sorry.
It looks like Kim.
Oh, sorry.
No, you go ahead.
I was just going to say, I had wondered if there was an opportunity to either promote this or do something at the farmers market. Again, I know that kind of evolved last year because of COVID, but it looks like this year they're going to continue with the farmers market and even do a night market now.
They are.
And if there was a way to kind of leverage that, that already existing venue to capture some new people and, promote it there.
That's a great idea. Yeah. I think that's good. I think we could probably have some sort of, at least even if we're not there, have some sort of informational about what is the town doing for you and the environment. And we can talk about all the different citizen advisory groups and what we're doing, the Tree City, the Bee City, the Environmental Advisory Board, and sustainability. And it'd be great if we kind of have some photos, posters that kind of show what's the town doing and how you can be involved in these different programs, and kind of maybe have it on display at the farmers market. You're right. That's a perfect idea. And then, maybe myself and, our volunteers could staff that. And I know the farmers market would welcome that. I'm sure they would allow us to have such a presence there at the market. So that's a good idea. There is not, the Peak Fest was usually the first Saturday in May. We talked about doing a booth at, the festival like that. It's not going to happen this May. It's pushed back to September right now, whether it happens September or not, because you're talking, 20,000 people in small areas. So that may or may not happen this year again. So, but when it does, we will have presence at those kinds of festivals too in the future, for certain, and get the education out about what we're doing.
So maybe I like Heidi's idea because it seems a little bit on a smaller scale, and maybe it's something that we're able to do over a handful of a few months. But then for the actual, week of Pollinator Week, perhaps we can find, a panel of people that could maybe do like the Facebook book live or something, instead of planning for potentially a larger event that kind of seems most likely to not be able to happen come June. Maybe it will, but it's hard to plan for something like that when, we don't really know what the chances are of it actually being able to be held. So perhaps we look at doing something smaller at the farmers market on a monthly basis, or I don't know, and then a virtual kind of panel or event for the week of the Pollinator Week.
I think that sounds like a reasonable plan and probably the smart one, and really with where we're heading. Yeah, because that is, even a small scale live in-person event is questionable for June. So I think that's the way to go. You're right. Is maybe be part of the farmers market, see what we can do there, and then some sort of virtual opening of the Pollinator Garden with Pollinator Week. So that sounds like good to everybody. Maybe that's the path we should go on.
I agree.
Okay.
I like that.
Well, again, if you want to kind of work towards that and what that would look like, just email me, and then we'll start that process, and we'll have an update at our March meeting. This next slide up here was just to kind of show you some different signage that we could do. If we talked about that recognition program, you see the upper left there, the pollinator habitat. We could put something like, similar to that, a small little sign that we could make. And we could, put the town's logo on there, a little bit about what this program's about, and, how a homeowner could, be part of that. And so we could do something like that. We could also do other signs about, why this area might look overgrown. because if you just let things not mow and people think, so why is it so weedy here? If you have a sign explaining why it looks like this, people will understand, it's pollinator habitat, it's a low mow zone where, we're not spraying here. And so, education and signage is, I think, a big part of what we should be doing. So it just gives you some examples of get the wheels spinning there as well. All right, I'm going to end my screen sharing here. So that's the Pollinator Week event and kind of updates on that. Anything that we talked about that you have questions on or ideas for March meeting, things you'd like to see us talk about in addition to these things, just let me know. If you can't think about them right now, just email them and we'll add them to the agenda for March. But the next meeting will be March 17th, 6 p.m. Let's plan on a virtual meeting. I think there will be an announcement tomorrow. I heard about town facilities being open March 1st to the public again. So, but still we'll be with, as far as size limits, will be under the governor's directives and, initiatives. And so, it's probably best, and I think this worked well. There didn't seem to be any tech issues, so we were able to share the screen successfully, so it worked out. So if it's okay with you guys, we'll just do another virtual meeting for March 17th, 6 p.m. Is there anything else, anybody, before I adjourn the meeting? Any other comments? Well, good. Well, thank you so much for everybody for being part of it. And again, the general public's out there. You got my email address at the beginning. I'll give it to you again. It's david.wood@apexnc.org. When we are able to have meetings in person in numbers, what I think this committee and what I like to see is we'll have these meetings, but we'll also want to add an educational component for the general public where we could have a guest speaker to talk about that are experts in these areas and things like that, about what kind of plants to put in your yard, a horticulturist or something like that, or a beekeeper to share their experiences and being a beekeeper in Apex and what that's like and how to do that how to get involved if you're interested in that. So I want to involve the general public as much as what we're doing. So I think having an educational piece maybe before our meetings or right after our meetings, we kind of go into a guest speaker. That's the idea at some point for these meetings too. And it'll be fun for all of us to do that. So, but I will adjourn the meeting and just thank you and be safe tonight on the ice storm tomorrow. And we'll see you on March 17th, 6 p.m. Thank you guys.
Everyone. Be safe.
Thank you. Night.
Thanks. Have a good night.